Welcome everyone to our July coffee chat on data import. This is the 1-year anniversary of coffee chats. So thank you for being a part of these conversations and contributing to the positive and helpful atmosphere. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Laura Murray. I am the GIS coordinator and community outreach assistant for IrisBG. One of our presenters today is our newest team member, Shanna Jones. She is an outreach community assistant and a horticulturalist who has been working to curate the Cheekwood Estate and Gardens plant collections for the last few years in Nashville. Listening in on the call today is Mari Rustin, Marketing Director and Product Manager of IrisBG. Oyvind Rustin, who is the founder and CEO of IrisBG, is here also. Our agenda today, we have 2 speakers. First is Avery Mangiameli, Registrar from Powell Gardens, who will be talking about data import at their garden. And next, Shanna Jones will be talking about using XY data to do the data import at Cheekwood. We know that importing data can appear daunting at first, but there is a method to the madness. The way that data is mapped within IrisBG allows it to support multiple languages. Avery and Shanna will explain how they learned the IrisBG language and used it to accomplish their tasks. These coffee chats are for you. We would like to offer you a space where you can connect with your peers and have a chat about IrisBG and the issues that may arise with the work in your collection. We don't have a fixed format for these sessions, so please get in touch with me if you would like to present a challenge, talk on a topic, or have us give you a demonstration. It can be anything big or small. Hopefully you'll make some new connections today, and together we might become a little bit wiser. This map is an overview of all the institutions represented by you here today. We have users from all over the US, Europe, and even Hong Kong. So welcome to our first-time attendees.
I have a poll real quick to launch to just kind of get an understanding of your level of experience and expertise with IrisBG. Looks like we have quite a few advanced, but mostly intermediate and novice, and a few who are trying out the trial. Great. Just our next question, since we are talking about data import, have you used the data import before? We're about 50-50, it looks like. Well, good, maybe we will all learn something today, and perhaps you can share what you're doing. Feel free to speak up during the Q&A and let us know what you're up to.
All right, with no further ado, please welcome Avery Mangiameli from Powell Gardens.
Hi, okay, so my name is Avery Mangiameli, and I am the registrar for both horticulture and development at Powell Gardens in Kansas City, Missouri. So today I'm going to be kind of overviewing how we use data import pretty regularly at Powell Gardens. So my data import workflow is basically depends on what I want to import. So the type of import. And so most of the time when I use the data import function, I'm importing new accessions. So knowing that, I can look at the information that I normally request for new accessions, and I can use that to influence my data import. So let me kind of explain. When I receive a new accession from our gardeners, they know that this is the basic information to give me. Information like the common name, scientific name, cultivar, native range, vendor, date received, number of specimens, material type, location in the garden, and location reference. So taking all of that information is how we are going to figure out how to import our data. We're going to take that same information. And we're going to take that information from just the basic everyday language that occurs between me and the gardener, and we're going to translate it into something that IrisBG can read on its own for the import function to work. So like I said, we're going to start with that basic information and the basic just everyday knowledge everyday language. And we are going to translate that using this PDF that is available in the IrisBG Knowledge Library. And this document is basically going to be the dictionary that helps us take that list of information and translate it so that IrisBG can correctly import it. So I actually learned recently from Laura that this document is also available in IrisBG. If you are in IrisBG, you press F1 to open the reference guide. And then once you open that, you can drop down usage and data import files right there. If you click on that, it'll also open this PDF. So that's super handy as well. So this is a page out of that PDF to kind of give you a glimpse at what we'll be looking at, but it just kind of, it lists similarly the information we already have, but we need to follow the specific format that it lists to be able to import it correctly. So let's look at, these are some examples of things that we will want to use when we pull or import our information. So for example, under taxon name, we have genus, species. If we have varieties or formas, then we'll have infratype, infraname. Under taxon common name, we have the name type in the common name itself. And then over on the right side is where it can get a little bit tricky, but don't get scared. So material code and provenance code and contact code. The big thing is that these are codes, meaning you have to choose from the code list rather than just typing in your text. So you'll know that you need that when in the type column, it'll say text or code. And there are other things outlined as well, but those are the two that I see most often. So text, you just type in what you want. Code, you have to select from, you have to type in something from the code list to make sure that it will translate correctly. And I'll walk you through that in a little bit more detail just here in a second. I should also preface that not all of this information is required for import or for your new accessions. This is just the information that I usually include. So I want to help give you a good head start, but feel free to take off some of the things if you don't need them or things like that. So this is a glimpse at a finished import document. So you can kind of see how the categories we just saw, like the genus, species, infratype, how they got translated into an Excel sheet that's ready to go into IrisBG. And also, like I just said, the big thing is going to be making sure that you get your columns labeled correctly with the PDF, the dictionary names, and then also what goes in those columns. Just making sure it's labeled correctly. So this is the hard part. Once you get this, once you understand how to use this resource to correctly label things, you can import anything. So just hang in there. We'll get through this together. I promise you can do it. Following on that same train, let's look at this document in a little bit more detail. Like I said, this is a finished import document. So let's break it apart. So starting from the left, much like if you were inputting an accession manually, if you leave the accession year blank, it'll auto-populate with the current year. So as you can see, that's what I've done here. I've just added the years that I needed to. Genus, species, input normally is text. Infratype, you have to be careful what you put in there, because in IrisBG, if you go in to manually make this accession, these are the options it gives you. So you'll want to make sure that in your import form, you choose one of those if you use that column. Infraname is just text, so you can just type it in. Cultivar is text. Common name type. So in IrisBG, when you are manually entering common names, it has a drop down for the common name type. So make sure that you put the code once again. And also I learned recently that these don't necessarily have to be languages. That's what ours was preset to when I arrived here. but it could be a different language. It could not be a language at all. It could be the usage. So whatever works for your common name type, just make sure that it follows the code. Common name is just text. Taxon distribution is just text. And again, remember, if you're updating in a session or you know you already have that taxa in your system, you don't need to add the common name or the distribution if you already have it in there. This is just for new accessions, new taxa. That's what I recommend adding. Okay, so picking back up with the material code, where we'll find that information. In the material box on the accessions page, if you go to material type, there's a drop down. That's the code list that you need to reference. So make sure you write the correct code from that drop down. Provenance code, in the origin box, there's a provenance drop down. Again, make sure it's the code. And contact code under origin, there's also a drop down. Another fun fact, I learned recently that the contact code can also be changed so that it doesn't, again, ours was preset to numbers when I got here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be abbreviations or things like that. So that might be a fun project for me and maybe for you. But also I want to mention that any of the code lists can be edited under definitions. I forgot to add that in here. So you're seeing the kind of the viewer side on this point, whereas there is in definitions, you can go in and actually edit those code lists if you need to add or change something. Okay, so again, just to recap, this is for kind of the basic information that I'd like to include for new accessions. So let's move on to some of the more complicated things that you might want to add for your import form. So if you're adding an item, you'll probably want to add item type, item status, item location, and item location reference. So item type code, this snippet is actually from the definitions section on item types where you would edit it or add other ones. So you can see there's the code list that you're choosing from. Item status code, similarly under definitions, there's the code list. And again, these could be different from what your actual lists are, but this is where you would find them and edit them in IrisBG. Item location, this is again on the viewer side in the item tab of the accessions screen. But if you go under, I don't think this one's under definitions. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but if you were going to go edit it, it would be somewhere else. But anyway, this is where you can easily find the code list to know what to reference. I should also note that both the short and the long codes work for your import forms. And I believe it was also noted that you can use asterisks in place of the bullets in the long codes. And then location reference as well. So a couple other things that you might want to add. The specimen count under material number of specimens is going to be listed as spec count. That took me a little bit. And then custom attributes if you want to add them. I first got into data import really this last March when we were about to open our first orchid exhibition, and I had to accession almost 1,000 new accessions. So data import came in very handy, and many of these accessions had hybrid crosses and awards that we wanted to track in the system. So we found that custom attributes was the best option for this. So this is how you would import custom attributes. Attra A underscore the name of your custom attribute. So on the accessions page, this is where you could find the list of your custom attributes if you wanted to add some. So similarly, you can do it with taxon attributes, but then the column name will be a little bit different. It'll be, instead of Attra A, it'll be Attra T underscore, and then similarly, the name of your custom attribute. But this one will be listed on the taxon page. So those are kind of the overall things that are helpful to know when you're trying to import information, where to get it from, how to translate it. So now I'm going to go through a couple common troubleshooting things after you've made your form and you've tried importing it and something doesn't go right, how to go about resolving that without getting discouraged. I have had many error states in my time with data import, so don't get discouraged. So let's say that you've just tried to import your first set of data and you notice that you have two little messages that say you have errors in your data. So what do you do next? So first we're going to look at this row of tabs, and that will help us determine where the error occurred. So you want to look for the tab that has little question marks. There could be multiple, but those are where your errors are found, and that's where we're going to go to figure out what we need to fix. So once you tab over there, over to that tab, you'll find some red X's, and those are where your problems occurred. So let's look at a couple examples of things that could go wrong and that often do go wrong for me. So this first section, it looks like it's just not reading the location correctly. So it looks like we're trying to do GR in the location reference GH3. Well, according to the one above that, it could be that I'm trying to say GRH GH3 and I just had a typo. That seems like the most plausible thing to me. And I know that we don't have a location GR, so it's most likely a typo. So that's what I'm going to label that one, and we will fix it accordingly. Easy to fix. So our next set of red X's, it looks like it's missing a location, but I noticed that it does have an item type and an item status listed. So if we go back to our import document, this looks a little strange. How can there be item type and item status without a location? Well, for me, it seems that I probably, and this is what happened, just copy pasted the type and status code for all of my data and then didn't go back and edit out the ones that didn't have a location, which is very easy to do and very easy to overlook. And it happens quite often, actually. And you can also note there, the GR/GH3 is pretty obvious at this point that it was just a typo. So that's what I'm going to label the second error, or the second problem, that we just need to remove the item type and item status because we don't have the location listed. So now we can compare this error state with the good import after we have fixed those errors. Everything looks great. There's no red X's. There's no question marks in our tabs. The three that didn't have locations listed aren't on the items tab where they should be, or they're not listed and they shouldn't be listed. So it's all good. So that is kind of comparing the differences there. So just to kind of to sum up what we just walked through, common troubleshooting things. The most common things that I've run into and I've heard others running into is just typos and spelling errors. And that can often mess you up. This is in your information as well as your column labels. So just checking to make sure that the columns all match the formatting in that PDF. Because if it's off by even a letter, IrisBG will find error with it. So just double check and just be careful. Another thing that happens often is if you're copy pasting large amounts like I do, and you forget to double check what should get removed. So again, just be careful, go back and double check. The good thing with that is even if it does produce an error when you're importing, it's easy enough to notice and go back and fix. So don't get discouraged. And eventually you'll just start noticing those things and being able to catch them the first time. So I hope that you don't get discouraged and you are able to use this to help your data import moving forward. Thanks.
name is Shanna T. Jones, and I am the plant collections manager at Cheekwood Estate and Gardens in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm also the community outreach assistant for IrisBG. And I would like to share the way that Cheekwood has been using the data import function for recording coordinates of trees, particularly the ash trees in our property, and how that function has helped us to evolve our plant healthcare program. In 2016, Cheekwood began treating the ash trees in the estate for emerald ash borer, which is an insect that has devastated many ash trees in North America and Europe. These are the three methods of treatment that we've been using: Merit, Safari, and Triage. They're all brand names of spray and injection treatment. And so this is how it started. In 2016, we were using maps that were drawn in the early aughts. This one was drawn in 2003. And the whole property was mapped out and drawn like this by a man named Michael Chamberlain. I have yet to meet him, but I hope one day I am able to, because these maps were a saving grace for me. But you'll see here that it's upside down and on this portion of the map, but 2 Fraxinus were highlighted here in green, and their accession numbers are also written on this map. Then around 2016, it got a little better, a little more realistic of a map. This is some sort of site map they were using. And all of these green dots indicate locations of ash trees. And so I wasn't there in 2016, but I believe what they were doing is using this map in conjunction with fluorescent tape wrapped around the trees to be treated. And it looks like here there's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trees. So not too hard to keep track of. And then in 2018, we upgraded to a PowerPoint presentation with photos and text and arrows. And so this was also whenever we started using IrisBG, and we were able to record the treatments in a database and keep track of it that way. But so the spray technicians that we contracted were using these images. And so then whenever we also started using ArcGIS, we were able to, so I was able to map all of the ash trees. I think I mapped almost 200. And a lot of this was based on the maps that Michael Chamberlain, that he drew in the 2000s. But then I also mapped in accessions many more. So like we have a woodland area that I was able to map using I was at the time the collector app for ArcGIS. And so this is what the exportation spreadsheet looks like. You'll see that the columns are titled accession C, point X, and point Y. And this is again from ArcGIS. And so just a small amount of manipulation needs to be done for the spreadsheet before it can be imported into IrisBG. And one of those steps is splitting the cell. So in IrisBG, the accession number is divided by year and then the rest of the number. So here I have highlighted the column A because that is the column I would like to split. And so in order to move forward with that step, you first need to add another column so you don't overwrite any data. And so here I've added column B or a column in between the accession C and the point X column. And then you go to the data tab in Excel and click text to column. And the convert text to columns wizard opens. And here it's really cool because you can see the preview of selected data. And you want to make sure that you select delimited and hit next. And select the other delimiter because you want to make sure that it is the dash. And then again, in the data preview, you're able to see what the function will look like. And so here you have it. The cell is split. And so next, you want to make sure, so I'll go back to the slide, you want to make sure that your point X and your point Y are in the appropriate columns for importing to IrisBG. So I think here in the States, we often think of X as being the latitude and Y as being longitude, but IrisBG accepts the data differently. So you'll see that for the item coordinate latitude and the item coordinate longitude, it has been switched. So just really make sure that you have that in the right order. And this is the template that is provided by IrisBG. And so you'll see the action is U for updates. And there's also a column for item number. And then next you go to data import and open your file. And hopefully there will be no errors. And this is an example of how it's going for us now. So this is truly a success story for Cheekwood. We are now able to generate reports and these maps to hand over to our spray techs, and they can easily find the trees now. We don't necessarily need to wrap them in fluorescent tape or, assist in any way. They have a map and also a spreadsheet that correlates to the numbers that they see on each map. And so these are all the trees that we are treating with merit. This is what's being treated with the spray treatment safari and triage. And so that's just these are just a few portions of the state. So in closing, I just would like to reiterate that we began with the treatment of 10 trees in 2016. And then in 2018, the same year that we adopted IrisBG for plant recording, that number increased to 47. And today, we are treating 195 total ash trees. And so we are just over the moon and so proud of this achievement. And that is all that I have for you today. Again, my name is Shanna T. Jones, and I am speaking on behalf of Cheekwood Estate and Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Avery and Shanna, and to everyone for attending our coffee chat today. Just a reminder that next month's coffee chat is on using plant records for fundraising. We will hear from Lynn Swain, the Director of Development from Cornell Botanic Gardens. Please invite your development staff to attend the next coffee chat with you. We hope to see you all there.